Good morning and welcome to the first February meeting of the Greenwich Board of Selectmen. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and welcome. It's a public meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It is not a public hearing, although the chair reserves the right to call upon any interested attendee to make comment or pose question on any matter that is on the board's agenda today. There are copies of the meeting's agenda on the table in the rear of the room. This morning we have a relatively brief agenda with 2 items under new business, potentially some appointments or nominations, and some executive session items for discussion, a workers' comp claim and status of pending litigation. So moving to item number 2, approval of minutes. We have minutes from the meeting that was held on January 28th. There are several corrections to those minutes, and I appreciate the efforts being made by our recording secretary who's filling in pending the appointment of a executive assistant. I'm just going to quickly run through them for edification, but Kathy, to make it easy for you, I'll just hand you this document so that you can see them. So moving to page 2, under number 4A1, it's State Representative Michael Boccino, is spelled Bocchino. Moving down to 4A5, Mr. Nick Macri, last name Macri. Moving to 4A6, we requested and he provided Mr. Matthew Pop comments regarding the option 3. I would note, just in terms of formatting, the font be changed to be consistent with the font used in the minutes, in that we remove below where it reads, please forward the appropriate person to ensure that they are placed within the minutes, all that be stricken. That was just from his email, and that carries over onto page 3. On 4A8, it says Mr. Marzullo as a de facto member. I think it should read he's ex officio member of the building committee. And then under appointments and nominations, it says Mr. Tessie proposed, I would say, the following nominations. I would strike appointments of the following candidates. And under 6A, Nisha Hirsch to succeed David Ormsby, just correcting his name, and it should read nominated in that case. With Mrs. Sada Khan, it's renominated, as well as Mrs. Puchel, same renominated, and Mr. Ingraham nominated. I believe that addresses all those corrections. I would note, since we have representatives from workers' comp, the minutes draft do reflect the individuals on the claims. If you think those should be stricken, we can do that, but they're already posted under draft, so. Right. Okay, I mean, the claim number is listed, but it also has the individual. So if you'd like, for the record, we could strike the name from them if that's been our format in the past, so. Okay, so noted. And those are the corrections. Does anybody have anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second. Okay, without objection. So if you would just pass that so Kathy has it. Thank you very much. Updates, there aren't too many to report on today. We do have the budget before the BET Budget Committee. I made the presentation on February 1st. I will just repeat once again, the budget is within the BET guideline. It brings the operating budget in below 2% for the town. It also addresses several of the areas of fixed charges that we're seeing in excess expenditures, healthcare, Nathaniel Witherell, school lunch, as well as our risk fund. We've had to put additional monies. Despite having all of those unfavorable items within the budget again is within guideline, uses fund balance to address those shortfalls. Fund balance is the result of the town judiciously managing its resources over the course of the fiscal year and having reserves to offset these liabilities. It uses those at the same time while maintains the BET's policy for fund balance for the town between 5 and 10% of expenditures, as well as is within the debt limit for the capital plan. So in terms of the foundation of the budget, it's within their guideline and it's within the expectations. The issues really are within operations, and discussions are ongoing with regard to the fire services. And I would just point out that one of the clear indicators of objectivity that the administration can point to is the results of the draft insurance service office assessment of the town. We are within 2 points of being rated as a Class 2 fire service under this report. The two areas in which we are still deficient in terms of the grading has to do with manpower and with facility. And those are the two consistent requests that have been made to the BETs going back, I could state, as 2009 with regard to Northwest, and of course staffing for this is the third year. So the issues are fairly crystal clear. They are subjective as to which people want to fund or not. We believe it's in the best interest of the citizens of the town to have adequate fire protection for all residents to ensure their life safety in addition to their property protection. It is important to note that ISO is looking at the assessment in the context of property protection and using that as a foundation in which casualty and property insurance companies grade for issuing policies. And so there is certainly an economic impact to residents by virtue of what the town does or does not do in terms of providing a certain service. So we will continue to advance that forward. I know a number of conversations, both directly with members of the board and within the context of the meeting, have been held. And we will continue to persevere right through to the March full BET meetings. And once the decision is made, then we'll see where we go from there. But that is the primary initiative, consistent initiative of the town's administration. In addition, the Northwest Station continues to be a priority. We have clearly two opportunities before us. One, to use the existing property, which was purchased in 2004. That property is deemed less desirable in terms of meeting the needs of the fire services in GEMS. It can only serve one. It also has limitations if it's used for fire because of its topography and inability to sustain septic and well on the site, and there are limited options to address that. So we have an alternative we're considering. Again, it's going to be up to the funding authorities whether or not they think that's the best investment for the town. We clearly think, again, it's a priority. Life safety is the core service that municipalities provide. So stay tuned. That is the issue. There are some other issues within the budget that relate to changed providing a program. One of them is the Youth Services Bureau position. Essentially, that position has been a tripartite funded position with the United Way, the state of Connecticut, and the town of Greenwich. It was developed out of the needs assessment of the United Way back in early 2000s. The town applied for the state funding, which it only had the capacity to do back in 2005, which initiated the establishment of it, and it was managed through United Way. United Way is going through a transition and feels it's time, as do we, that the town assume full responsibility for this. And so we have basically shifted the dollars that were exported to United Way, and we've imported them back in, and we're now providing that service. So we did explain that to the BET Budget Committee last week, as well as supported Dr. Berry's program of external entities that he developed a very rigorous prioritization for in using nonprofits to provide services that the town either once provided or were not being provided. So those are the primary topics in the initial stages. I know there's more to come. And again, I want to thank the professional staff, department heads for their continued perseverance through this process.
Thank you for your commitment.
One just high note, last Friday I had an opportunity to go over to Hill House to celebrate the 100th birthday of a woman, Caroline, I should say, Dusabella. Caroline was a public school health nurse, or public health nurse in our schools. She was in the Army, where she served in the Second World War under General Patton at the Battle of the Bulge, and she retired as a first lieutenant in the U.S. Army Corps. She's been deeply involved with St. Catherine of Siena Church as a Eucharistic minister for 20 years and a choir member. I was joined there by Representative Fred Camillo and Monsignor Detcher, and I have to say, for 100 years old, Miss Dusabella was quite attentive and aware of what was happening and engaged, and it was just wonderful to celebrate a life well lived and who made wonderful contributions to their country and to her town. So one of those wonderful human interest stories, and again, best wishes to Caroline Dusabella for many more years of healthy and happy living. That concludes. Before I conclude updates, we are still in the process of interviewing people for the executive assistant to the first selectman position. When I say we're still in the process, we completed round one, and round two essentially now is 3 applicants will be asked to come back and present some of their responses to some practical assessments we are going to provide to them. In addition, we are working through the Purchasing and Administrative Services Director position. I want to thank Human Resources Director Mary Pepe and Town Administrator Ben Branyan for assisting me in spearheading the assessment of those candidates as we move into the next phase. So thank you both for your efforts in that regard. That concludes updates. We'll drop down to new business. Under new business, we have with us Deputy Public Works Commissioner James Michael and Senior Civil Engineer Frank Patisse, who are here today to present to us a detour plan for the Brook Ridge Drive area as they proceed with the replacement of the rehabilitation of bridge number 5644, Brook Ridge Drive over East Brothers Brook. So good morning, Frank, and welcome.
Good morning. As you mentioned, we're here to request the road closure and detour to rehabilitate the bridge on Brook Ridge Drive. The bridge was reconstructed in 1956, and it's currently in poor condition due to the steel girders carrying the roadway. So we are proposing to replace the superstructure of it, reusing the existing abutments that are there now. The project's scheduled to take approximately 4 months, and the detour will utilize Fairfield Road, Stanwich Road, Old Post Road, and Route 1. The project's similar to like the Berrying Hill Road Bridge, which we completed about a year ago now.
Great. Any questions about it? I know that one of the residents there is quite involved with the RTM, Mr. Hamilton, and he spends a considerable amount of time addressing issues in the area, but he seemed very pleased with what was presented, and I told him this was one way of getting traffic calming on Brookridge, just detour the traffic off of it, right? So you'll get less comments over the next 4 months, Jim. Any
Have any
from the
questions?
audience? If not, is there a motion to approve the road closure as presented by Public Works?
So moved. Second.
Okay, without objection.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda today, and we have with us Denise Savageau, our Conservation Director, and Dan Warsaw, our Emergency Management Director. And that is for the Board of Selectmen to approve the Town of Greenwich Resolution from the 2016-2021 Southwestern Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan Update. The resolution is before us, and both Dan and Denise are with us.
How are you feeling, Dan?
Oh, hobbling along, Drew. Good morning, everyone. The item that's before you today is a culmination of several years of work from a lot of town departments, agencies, and our community partners from the old SWERPA, now WestCog. This, to put it in a nutshell, this document is the gateway to FEMA funding in cases of disaster. This is done every 5 years. Since we've had Irene, Sandy, the federal government has amped up some of the requirements on it a little bit. So we've met all those requirements. We had a very robust work session here in this room that encompassed town agencies, RTM, community groups, state legislatures, and we felt it was the best of these workshops in the region. So a lot of good input from the town. People are very aware of where things are, but I would just like to thank Denise, Katie DeLuca, Commissioner Siebert, and the professional staffs that have worked on this project, because without doing the heavy lifting and the work of going through the datum and the details, we wouldn't have such a concise document. The folks from WestCog and the consultants put together a fairly large document in the several hundred-page category, but what you have in front of you is the executive summary and the resolution, and be happy to take any questions you might have on those items.
Joe?
Yeah, I was asking Ben, natural hazards, can you just define it? Is it just flooding? Like, what do you-
That's one of them. We covered the whole gamut from earthquakes to
Okay.
tsunamis. It's the whole deal.
Gotcha.
So, and it basically, the state does the same thing at their level. So we wanted to make sure we covered the exact same level of data and criteria that the state of Connecticut covered in its document.
And so man-made or man is something totally separate.
Totally separate.
Okay, thanks.
Totally separate. And with that said, we got word from Washington yesterday that the Department of Homeland Security, when they introduced their budget to Congress, cut somewhere in the neighborhood of $274 million out of projects such as the pre-disaster mitigation, flood mapping, those kind of things. So don't know how Congress is going to react to that, but certainly we're going to be in touch with Congressman Himes.
How does that trickle down to us in Greenwich?
Well, what it does is it trickles down to us through this disaster mitigation program, funding for things such as sea level rise, funding for taking houses that have been damaged, raising them, those kind of things, and more importantly, the critical mapping and understanding the changes of the coastline. That mapping is very, very important to us. So we'll see how that all plays out.
And that was that was voted on in Congress?
No, it was the Jay Johnson, the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, presented their budget to Congress, and there's a bunch of other major grants that affect the Homeland Security side of the house that have also seen cuts. But again, this is, Congress may see fit to restore those funds, they may not. This is the beginning of a long process, but it does, I just found it ironic, we were before you today, and we got this word on funding cuts yesterday, so.
Thank you, Dan.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Denise, did you want to comment at all on? Okay, well, thank you again. Well, thank you, I appreciate your
Denise, thank you.
your diligence. And
Yeah, thank
again, just to give context, this was developed over a 2-year period, and I think reflects a collaboration between the various towns and cities in the area, which we often hear about. This is clearly a case that it makes sense and is shown to be demonstrated effectively. So if there's not any other discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented? To note, it will be formally prepared and signed on our municipal letterhead. This is the draft.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Toner, seconded by Mr. Marzullo. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you again. Thank you very much. Appointments and nominations. We have, again, several that need to occur. We have the RTM cutoff, I believe, for the March call is next Friday. Would you just confirm, would you call 3702, 27302,
2732.
23702, and just ask them when the cutoff is? I think it's next Friday.
How many numbers are these? No answer. Hello? There's no answer. Where are these people?
Is it next?
Where are these people?
Anyway, it's next week. I'm pretty sure it's next Friday, so if we're gonna, if we're gonna move these onto the March call, we have to act sometime next week before Friday, which would necessitate a special meeting. What is your availability, gentlemen?
We are available at your pleasure, so we will make ourselves available. You're the busy guy.
We're gonna have you call in from the ambulance.
No, just not on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
That's it.
So Wednesday, or you can,
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen on Thursday.
so, but Wednesday, Larry, let's just check when Ben gets back what the BET schedule is, because I think we're before them on,
We'll make it here. We're like mailmen.
You can read any of
Rain,
that.
sleet, snow.
so Capital, is that Capital?
Yeah, capital, something, DPW,
Yeah, so, I mean, we're gonna have to be at that.
yeah, IT.
Thank you, Ben, for, is it next Friday or this Friday?
Next Friday.
Next Friday. So if we were to have a meeting, a special meeting on Wednesday to do nominations, doesn't give us a whole lot of time to see the people, though, in all candor.
Well, let's look at people that are being renominated, because you people know those, and I can defer to your judgment.
Okay,
Yeah, if we can get a list, that's a good point. If we can put a list of who, because some of them I know too. I don't need to interview.
This is the list.
Yeah.
right. So,
Let's do
We
it
can
that
act
way.
on today.
All right.
I mean,
do you have any that you'd like to do
I
today?
haven't looked, but I can definitely do it next time without, set the date and,
Let's look, let's,
Well, these are the ones that have been referred to us.
yeah, I have that. I mean, let's just take health for a minute. We acted on Julia. Did you get that on?
is anyone up for renom?
How about Nancy Kaplan on Parks and Rec?
You
Oh, yeah.
got Bob
Yeah.
Elio, we did Julia, Michael Franco, and then,
They're all up?
yeah, but I,
Oh, I can remove any of those I'm comfortable with. Is Bronan up too? I mean,
no. Parks and Rec, Nancy Kaplan, John, I thought we did John Hartwell. Kathy Weisenberger, I spoke with her, I wasn't sure she was gonna continue.
That's all the reason why we should put her on. And tell her she has to. Isn't that great?
See, I don't wanna move someone, we're not sure they're gonna, she's on here to re-up.
But Nancy Kaplan?
Yeah, is she on this list?
Yep.
Okay, well, then I'm happy to move her. Okay, so for the Board of Parks and Recreation, I move to renominate Nancy Kaplan to the Board of Parks and Recreation for a term expiring 3/31/19. Is there a second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, on ZBA, we've got 1, 2, 3. One person's not continuing, so we have to figure that out. One person is stepping up, Mr. Ansharatis, so we'll have to think about that. But Kirkpatrick is currently a regular member. She'd like to continue.
With ZBA, with all that went on, I think I would like to meet with them,
Okay.
just because of them. There is one for wetlands. I'm comfortable with the chairman's recommendation, but if you two want to.
Yeah, I want to talk with them too. For the
You want to
same,
meet with them? Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
or at least talk with them before.
You know,
So health,
Fine.
these are all new. Health.
wake up back there.
Wetlands. I'm trying to remember, but I don't know which spot he's new, which spot he'll go in.
Right.
Build a wall.
You weren't in that.
Huge.
Do me a favor, turn that on.
We have P and Z, do you want to, we have to see Margarita, we have housing, that's not until, that's not,
Oh, yeah, we need to,
that's off, that's.
Sam, wants somebody.
Social services. I don't think we can really do any more
No,
today
okay.
without reconciling it against this. So in terms of the time, Ben, do you know what, we're meeting with the BEP next Wednesday?
Starting at 9 a.m.
And it's
Through the
pre-
whole day.
Oh, good, that'll be exciting.
9 to 4.
9 to 4.
When's that?
Well, can we do it in the evening
I'm available.
at 5 o'clock or
we can do
something?
it for, whatever you want to do, because I'm going to be here all day, too.
Do you want to do it on Wednesday at 5?
That's fine.
I mean, if we know, if we're organized, we should be able to move through it really quick.
Right.
Or even, whatever you want to, I'm
Okay,
available Wednesday.
let's tentatively say Wednesday,
February 17th.
the February 17th at 5 PM. Tentative.
Tentative.
And if, depending upon what's going on up in Springfield.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, so we got one nomination addressed. That moves to executive session. We have one item pending litigation, Abby?
It,
Okay. All right,
thank
so
you.
is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation and settlement of claims?
So moved.
seconded.
Okay, 10:41.